Welcome to CXO, a magical podcast to help you serve better and concoct experiences that are superlative in nature. I'm your host, Supriya Sharma, bringing to you in each episode didactic nuggets so you can get inspired to sprinkle stardust in your company, your home, and the community on the whole.
So we are flagging off the week on CXO with our guest, Sue Duris. Sue is the co-founder and president of M4 Communications, which is a global marketing and customer experience strategic consulting firm that helps organizations create omnichannel experiences, engaging employees and driving customer value. She's an experienced marketing and CX leader with former positions as CMO, VP of Marketing, and Director of Customer Experience, and a history of helping companies create customer-centric models. In addition, she believes in giving back to the community and does so by serving as a trustee on charity boards and as a non-executive director on corporate boards. Welcome to our show, Sue.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to it.
So how are you doing today?
Doing well. Great start of the week. Always love to talk about one of my favorite topics in customer experience.
I absolutely understand how favorite it is for you, because I was reading one of your articles where you mention about companies achieving growth when culture, employee experience, and customer experience are aligned. You know why this is so intriguing? Because generally, when we talk of employee experience and customer experience, they do go hand in hand. But you mentioning culture explicitly here is what fascinated me. So I want to know from you, what is it, or rather, how is it that culture fits into this equation of employee experience and the customer experience?
Well, it's interesting, and at M4 we call the trifecta of culture, employee experience, and customer experience, the holy trinity of growth, because you need all three aligned to grow your organization. And it starts with culture. It really has to. What are the values? How do you want to be known as customer centric? Do you want to be known as product centric? And it's interesting. Product centric companies can very easily become customer centric by putting the customer in the center of their operations. Because once you know what the customer wants, you already have your product market fit, so you know all these things, and you don't have to go chasing for the next product to see if they what's the line from the famous movie, if they build it they will come, or if we build it they will come. And that's no longer the case, because it's all about what the customer need is, and looking to see if it's an unmet need or an undermet need, and driving products and services to meet that need. That's how you drive loyalty and drive advocacy. And in my area and the way I view things, driving the ultimate metric, and that's customer lifetime value. So taking a couple of steps back, the culture becomes very important. What are the values? What are these things that we need to have in place? And then looking at, okay, we know what our strategy is and what our customer strategy is. How are we going to communicate that to customers? That's where employee experience comes from. And it's not just when the employees are inside the organization. It starts before candidate experience, before you're putting out, you're sourcing those candidates, or sourcing those roles that you need. Because like myself, I look at brands all day long, what they're communicating, what their values are. So when I may come face to face with that brand and determining, is that something that I want to be associated with? Do I want to be a customer, or do I not want to be a customer? Or do I want to be an employee? Do I not want to be an employee? So all these things, employee experience, customer experience, happen well before you're even at that point of making a decision. And then the third leg of this triangle is the customer experience piece. There are a lot of articles backed up with definite metrics that employees drive customer experience. And it's absolutely true. So you need to set that culture, have the employees, and where employee experience comes from, it's all the different things. Are you listening to their voice? Are you taking what they're telling you and improving things for them? Do they feel included in strategy and they're making strategy happen? When they feel like a valued member of the team, that employee experience becomes engaged employees. And when your employees are engaged, that actually impacts the bottom line for organizations. So everything comes down to that it really does come down to money. I mean, are you they talk about follow the money and things of that nature. If you're doing the right things for your customers, they are going to reward you by buying from you and also increasing their share of the wallet and sticking with you.
And I feel tempted to phrase it this way, that if we have a service-oriented culture, the customer experience and the employee experience automatically get aligned with the goals and the vision of the organization, right? And you spoke about measuring the employee experience or the customer experience. And when we talk of measuring, the first thing that comes to my mind is the Net Promoter Score, the NPS that we call it, a very interesting score, which was put together by Bain and Company and Satmetrix way back in 2003, to measure customer satisfaction and loyalty. So they ask questions like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend a product, brand, or service to your friend or colleague, which is a likelihood question and then a follow-up question. Now, in the present day, does it look more like a vanity score, or it really is a value score still?
Well, that 0 to 10 scale, it is important. But what we've gotten into trouble on in the past and a little bit current and currently is that we put too much emphasis on Net Promoter Score. So in fact, I was asked, because they wanted to know, what's the Net Promoter Score of Net Promoter Score? They actually asked, okay, who are promoters, who are passives, who are detractors, the three segments of Net Promoter Score. And I viewed myself as a 9. So I'm a promoter, but it has to be done in the right way. And when I say the right way, using the Net Promoter Score for what it was designed to do. And I know that when I say this, there might be some questions. People will be scratching their heads. I view Net Promoter Score as a lagging metric, not a leading metric. So a leading metric will help you predict.
Yeah.
Lagging is still important because decisions are still made on lagging metrics. And the thing with Net Promoter Score, I use it as part of the overall dashboard. I mean, we talk about CSAT, we talk about effort, we talk about promoter score, we talk about, in the contact center world, things like average handle time and first contact resolution, and a thing that I especially like to do with metrics. You just can't look at customer metrics. You need to align them with operational metrics. Okay, you have all these great customer metrics and you're getting great scores, but is it producing desired incomes? Or excuse me, desired outcomes? Are they converting? Are they renewing? Are they advocating for you? And everything else that an organization has determined it is an outcome that they want to see. NPS, Net Promoter Score, is part of that dashboard because there are some valuable things that you find out. I mean, you look and you determine what are the promoters, what are the passives, what are the detractors, then you segment from there. For instance, a good example, and I think I had talked about it in an article that you were interested in, the Net Promoter Score that I had wrote, is it a vanity or value metric? If you look at detractors from that 0 to 6 scale, you can't treat somebody who listed 0 as somebody who is a 6, because the 6 person could be on the verge of becoming a passive or even becoming a promoter. So there needs to be tactics, strategy, tactics, even looking at those promoters, excuse me, those different segments of the Net Promoter Score.
Yeah, makes sense.
But back to what we're not doing right. I think the big problem is that we're treating Net Promoter Score as a transactional metric. And here's my example. I call you're a brand. I had an issue with my product, so I called in. You were very welcoming to me and accommodating and fixed my issue right on the spot, which I absolutely appreciated. And the next thing you sent me was the Net Promoter Score. How likely would I be to recommend? That's not the place for Net Promoter Score. The better place is offering the customer effort score, because effort, to me these days, is what is the metric that's really driving loyalty. The best place for the Net Promoter Score is when you're developing a relationship. And depending on how often a brand wants to do that put out that Net Promoter Score, whether it's annually, biannually, quarterly, it's really up to them, but it should be a relational metric, because not only are you asking the question, how likely would you be to recommend, but once they gave you the score, the reasons why they provided that particular score. And then I ask a third question, and that is, if there's one thing that we could improve on to help make you more successful, what would that be? Because you're combining that voice. Hey, I think my experience is good, but it can be better. so you're getting a little bit extra from them, and they're also they're having the reaction, oh wow, they're going the extra step and asking me
Mhm.
what I want. So you're doing a lot of different things with that net promoter score, which you should do, and that should be part of the overall metrics package, just
Uh-huh.
to get a full view of the customers, not just focusing on that net promoter score, because sometimes a net promoter score can give you a false positive. How many times have you been, I know I have been in a situation that I want to go on with my daily things that I have to do, but I get this email here, I'll just fill it out so I can get it, so I can delete the email and move on.
Yeah.
So they're filling it out. Is it what they really think? Are they giving a 9 when I'll give them a 9 or give them a 10, just to get rid of the email, or they're having a bad day and they give them a lower score when it's not really a lower score. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is an art and science to any metrics, and especially net promoter score.
And from what I understand, how you explained, it should be used in relation with other scores like the CSAT, which is the customer satisfaction score, and the CES, the customer effort score. Maybe it's not a standalone matrix, and this is the mistake that most of the organizations do. They perceive it as a standalone matrix, and they want to use it as the be all end all to measure the customer experience. But here we are saying that it has to be relational, and at the same time, it has to be used in addition with other matrices to make sure that we are getting the right perception of what the customer thinks about us. Do you also intend to say that it's not a destination, it's a journey in that sense? Because that's what I sensed from what you just spoke about.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. And metrics should never be a destination, because as CX professionals, we should always be optimizing customer experience for our customers. And we always have to be 1, 2, maybe even 3 steps ahead of customers on expectations. I mean, just looking at what started in March of last year, and we're still in it, the whole pandemic. I mean, with people being in lockdown, which means this lovely thing in front of me, the computer, was my connection to the outside world. Our expectations, I think, jumped 5 notches from 2019, that we're expecting immediate action. We're expecting, well, immediate contact, that first contact, and then immediate action, and resolving our issues. And if an organization can't do that, people are off to the next thing. I mean, I was just reading, and I cannot remember what it was, but it was a great viewpoint of where we are, that maybe a couple of years ago, like in 2019, it was, oops, if a company made a mistake, I'm going to give them another chance. Now it's, oops, the company made a mistake, I don't trust them, I need to go elsewhere. So, I mean, those expectations are very, very important. And that's why looking at the metrics and looking at the key performance indicators and coming back to growth a little bit, because I think that's everybody's North Star, is to grow. And how you do that, I mean, just to say, I want to grow for the year, I mean, having a measurable and realistic goal for the year, I want to grow by 10% in 6 months, or so something, whatever's determined, then you have to look at those key performance indicators. and from the customer side and from the operational side. That's why I've never been someone who has who's been focused on one core metric. I know, and I understand why some do, because if you have that core metric, and I'm a little bit that way with where customer lifetime value is.
Mhm.
That is my core metric that I shoot for, because that's going to drive growth, but it's not the only metric that I look at. Saying core could be a foundation. Okay, this is what I want to move towards, but I also need to look at all these other metrics, because it's important to see where my customers are, our customers are. That's why I always look at 3 segments of a metrics dashboard. The perception metrics, which is Net Promoter Score, CSAT, things of that nature. What I would call observation type metrics. They're the ones that you're observing right then and there, like first contact resolution, average handle time. There's no perception. You're actually seeing what's happening. And then the third is outcome metrics. What are they doing? If they're saying that they're very satisfied, it's low effort, that should correspond to exactly that they're converting to a sale. There's upsells, there's cross sales, they're advocating for the brand, so they're bringing new people, they're bringing new customers in, all these different things. Now, if something doesn't align, if you have all these great metrics on the customer perception side, but they're not leading to the outcomes, then there's a disconnect somewhere. And that's why all these metrics and having that holistic customer view is so important. So you know what's going on, and you might be able to fix it in real time.
And when it comes to benchmarking such metric, whether it is NPS or it's CSAT or it's CES or customer lifetime value also for that matter, is it a good idea to just benchmark in terms of the industry standards, or benchmarking within the company also? Because we just spoke about continuous optimization within the organization in order to provide a better experience to the customers. So how do we find a sweet spot between that optimization or benchmarking within the company and across the industry?
I'd say, well, it's interesting for benchmarking. There's like, let's go back to Net Promoter Score, since we're talking about that. There could be an overall NPS benchmark. There can be an industry NPS benchmark. Then it can be your brand benchmark. And then you have to differentiate on NPS. It could be employee NPS, it could be brand NPS, it could be product NPS. I would be much more interested in, for me, I think that industry NPS, it's a good guideline, but each company is different. So you really can't say, well, this company's getting an 80 on their NPS, but I'm only getting I'm only getting a 60. I must be a failure. No, because there are many things that go into that. Two companies are on two different journeys. Comparing, you have to be careful with comparing, because it can get you in a heap of trouble, but you use it as a guidepost. And back to that 60 with that company, who knows if at the beginning of the year they started at 40 and they're at 60. And they started at 40 in January and they're at 60 in August. That says something. They're doing something right. So you need to take a look at all these different metrics and look at the insights and look at what, and not only from the metrics, and the insights, but also online behaviors, what the field's telling you, customer interviews, other surveys that are being done. We talk a lot about the unsolicited feedback, that when people do a survey, and we're not unsolicited feedback, but the data that comes out of those reports, or the surveying reports, that when they start expounding on things or going to third-party sites like social media and making comments, or different things like a trust radius as a good example, that customers are providing their inputs. You have to look at that data as well, and a lot of companies don't. They disregard it. So all these different things makes up the customer voice. And if they're just taking it and saying, okay, same with Net Promoter Score, that's fantastic, I'm good, I check off my check the box, I did my quarterly NPS or an annual or biannual NPS survey and file it in the drawer. That's doing no one. It's not helping you as an organization, and it's certainly not helping the customer. You got to take that information that they provide and actually look at those actionable insights and make the changes to optimize CX.
So before we actually go back to the drawing board and start relooking at our CX dashboards, my last thing to you would be the customer lifetime value, since you've been making a lot of mention about it. Where does it fit best in my dashboard as an organization who wants to enhance the experience it is providing for its customers?
Well, I mean, it's right there. Don't ask me to define customer lifetime value, because the formula is tricky. But you're looking across customers and looking to see, is that improving, is that not improving. I mean, if you had a summary of your dashboard, it's gonna be right up there, because that should be that is a key driver on, are you growing? Because once that lifetime value increases, those customers are buying more, sticking with you longer, and that's the big gist of this whole thing. Anyhow, isn't it? It's not just saying, oh, well, we have these acquisitions. Are we retaining them? Are they not just, because you don't want somebody to just retain. Okay, I'm gonna go, yeah, I'll renew. I'll do a renewal because, I'm sticking with them. I mean, they don't suck, but it's not great. Those are the ones you have to be careful of, because there's such thing as soft and hard churn. And someone who could go down that churn path versus somebody that's already there, I still think that you can save somebody who's going to churn, but you have to be willing to make the hard decisions. And if something's not working for you as a company, not stick by it just because we've always done it that way. But actually, if you want to grow, you need to know. There you go. I didn't mean to make a rhyme, but it comes down to, you can't measure what you can't manage. Or excuse me, other way around.
What gets measured?
Measure. You can't manage what you can't measure.
And the reason I asked about that was being different organizations from different sectors and different sizes, different values actually. we tend to place different levels of emphasis on the different scores that are available on the dashboards. And that was the reason I plugged in that question as to where does a particular score fit in. But yeah, makes sense. We have to find our own customized recipe based on where we are coming from in the industry or the type of organization we are. Thank you, Sue, for being with us. It was really an honor to host you.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I had an enjoyable time.
Thanks for listening to CXO with your host, Supriya. I hope you enjoyed a dive into the nitty-gritty of customer experience. If you are committed to applying these ideas in the real world, stay tuned with me. Don't forget to check out all the links and resources in the show notes. That's all for this episode, folks. See you next time.